Phosphocreatine, also known as creatine phosphate, is an energy source for muscle contraction naturally present in the skeletal muscle tissue of humans and other vertebrates. It enables the expression of explosive power in the muscles, lasting no longer than 8 to 12 seconds. Uh, the muscles use the phosphocreatine energy system, also known as the anaerobic alytic system, during the first 10 seconds of the sustained muscle contraction. It is an anaerobic because it doesn't require oxygen to function, and alactic because it doesn't produce lactic acid. The energy system that powers muscle contraction uses ATP. ATP is produced from glucose through the glycolytic pathway, but little ATP is stored in the muscle, and the body uses it up in the first few seconds of muscle contraction. It needs to be replenished using phosphocreatine to convert DP into ATP in the mitochondria of cells in the muscle tissue.
And to make ATP, phosphocreatine transfer a phosphate molecule to ADP. The newly formed ATP is now available to be used for muscle contraction. The leftover portion of phosphocreatine is creatine, which is processed by the liver into creatine and eliminated through the kidney and urine. The body doesn't recycle this creatine into phosphocreatine. Anaerobic glycolysis does not require oxygen and uses the energy containing glucose for the formation of ATP. This pathway occurs within the cytoplasm and breaks glucose down into a simpler component called pyruvate. As an intermediate pathway between the phosphagen and aerobic system, anaerobic glycolysis can produce ATP quite rapidly for use during activities requiring large bursts of energy over somewhat longer period of time, usually like 30 seconds or 40 seconds. And are surrounded by more capillaries than fast-twitch fibers. As the name implies, slow-twitch fibers contract more slowly than fast-twitch fibers. They have lower force outputs but are more efficient and fatigue-resistant than fast-twitch fibers. Fast-twitch muscle fiber, also known as type 2 muscle fibers, are further subdivided into fast glycolytic, aka type 2X, and also type 2A fibers.
Type 2X muscle fibers contain a relatively small amount of mitochondria, have a limited capacity for aerobic metabolism, and fatigue more easily than aerobic glycolysis. This pathway requires oxygen to produce ATP because carbohydrates and fats are only burned in the presence of oxygen. This pathway occurs in the mitochondria of the cell and is used for activities requiring sustained energy production. Aerobic glycolysis has a slow rate of ATP production and is predominantly utilized during longer duration, lower intensity activities after the phosphagen and anaerobic systems have fatigued. It is important to remember that all three of these systems contribute to the energy needs of the body during physical activity. These systems do not work independently of each other, but rather dominant at different times, depending on the duration and the intensity of the activity.
Skeletal fibers can be divided into two general categories based on how quickly they contract. Slow-twitch muscle fibers, also known as type 1 muscle fibers, contain relatively large amounts of mitochondria and are surrounded by more capillaries than fast-twitch fibers. As the name implies, slow-twitch fibers contract more slowly than fast-twitch fibers. They have lower force outputs but are more efficient and fatigue-resistant than fast-twitch fibers. Fast-twitch muscle fiber, also known as type 2 muscle fibers, are further subdivided into fast glycolytic, aka type 2X, and also type 2A fibers.
Type 2X muscle fibers contain a relatively small amount of mitochondria, have a limited capacity for aerobic metabolism, and fatigue more easily than slow twitch fibers. They have considerable anaerobic capacity and are the largest and fastest, and are capable of producing the most force of all the skeletal muscle fibers. Type 2A muscle fibers possess speed, fatigue, and force production capacities somewhere between type 1 and type 2X fibers. For this reason, type 2A fibers are also called intermediate fibers.